Smart contracts. Let's pull it off for the boomers by answering some fundamental questions. What are smart contracts and what is blockchain technology? Unfortunately, there is no single answer to this. Even within the legal and IT communities, there is no single universally recognized notion of what a smart contract actually is. Smart contracts use cryptography to generate hash functions which subsequently get coded into the ledger-based systems. A smart contract is an automated enforceable agreement. A smart contract, incidentally, is basically a computer program, or rather a computer protocol, primarily intended to facilitate the ends of a negotiation or enforce the terms of a contract. A smart contract is a programmatic function executed when certain specified conditions are fulfilled. These self-enforceable protocols, written in code, are powered by asset or transaction registries or a decentralized ledger, thus removing the chance of any corruption in the registry information. These contracts eliminate the chances of non-performance of the contract by either of the parties, so that no legal mechanism is required to enforce the contract. The true potential of blockchain and smart contracts can, however, be fully realized only when they can reliably interact with each other externally in a non-blockchain based environment. In the real world, where data is rarely generated and stored on a distributed ledger, smart contracts need governance models to harmonize inter-system communications. Blockchain, uh, on the contrary, is one of the latest technologies which revolutionized conventional functionalities of a postmodern society. The technology beholds the potential to revamp the normative outlook of acknowledging human and systematic error, consequently aiding in its elimination. To truly understand the concept of smart contracts, we first need to comprehensively analyze and distinguish smart contracts from smart contract code. A smart contract code refers to a computer code which, when executed, uses conditional logic to assess whether one or more predefined conditions are met. A smart legal contract or a smart contract, by contrary, refers to legal contracts which are partly or wholly represented or performed by software. A smart contract code could have contractual or legal relevance. They could involve the software taking steps to discharge an obligation. They could exercise rights. They could send a termination notice on a lease or a derivative contract. The tasks could also result in the transfer of ownership of assets. However, it is not necessary that these tasks should have any contractual or legal relevance at all. Thus, a smart contract code does not relate to a legal contract at all. Thus, a smart contract is an automatable and enforceable agreement, automable by computer, although some parts may require human input and control, enforceable either by legal enforcement of rights and obligations or via tamper-proof execution of computer code. Before moving to the legality of smart contracts, it is important to understand how they work. Smart contracts are contracts whose terms and conditions are converted into a software code. The contract is then floated on a blockchain such that each transaction executed by the contract is logged as a block on the blockchain platform, thus creating a clear audit trail, which is extremely difficult to erase or wipe out. The computer coded obligations of the contract self execute when certain conditions are met. This gives the contracts a feature of being self executory. Further, once the contracts are executed, the completion of the obligations encoded cannot be stopped midway. Thus, it becomes self-enforcing. However, unlike a traditional contract, modification of smart contracts is extremely difficult and cumbersome. Since the obligations are computer coded, any modification or amendment would require parties to code the contract from scratch. Smart contracts have to fulfill the basic ingredients of a traditional contract. That is, there must be a valid offer, a valid acceptance, lawful subject matter, valid consent, and competent parties. Having fulfilled these conditions, the questions that arise are whether an electronic signature obtained using the blockchain technology be considered as a valid form of authenticating an electronic agreement or not. The second question that arises is that whether a smart contract would carry evidentiary value so that it may be submitted in court as evidence if a dispute arises. India has enacted the Information Technology Act 2000, which is very similar to the US's UETA. UETA stands for Uniform Electronic Transactions Act. While the IT Act allows contracts or records to be validated or authenticated by using electronic signatures, it has placed regulations or conditions on how one can obtain a digital signature. Under Section 35 of the IT Act, a digital signature can be obtained only from a government designated certifying authority. This would be the first point of concern for a smart contract, since to validate a smart contract, it is the blockchain technology that generates the hash key to be used as an individual identifier and authenticator. Numerous amendments were also made to the Indian Evidence Act 1872 to include provisions from the admissibility of electronic records, signatures, and agreements. Section 85B states that an electronic agreement would be considered as a valid agreement only if it is auth- authenticated using an electronic signature, one obtained in accordance with the provisions of the IT Act. Section 88A of the Indian Evidence Act states that the court shall presume the authenticity of an electronic record produced in court, but shall make no presumptions about the sender of the record. Thus, if a signature is used that is obtained via the blockchain technology, it will not only make the admissibility of the smart contract more difficult, since the signature has all not been obtained under the IT Act. Numerous amendments were also made to the Indian Evidence Act 1872 to include provisions for the admissibility of electronic records, signatures, and agreements. Section 85B states that an electronic agreement would be considered as a valid agreement only if it is authenticated using an electronic signature that is obtained in accordance with the provisions of the IT Act. Section 88A of the Indian Evidence Act states that the court shall presume the authenticity of an electronic record produced in court, but shall make no presumptions about the sender of the record. Thus, if a signature is used that is obtained via the blockchain technology, it will only make the admissibility of the smart contract more difficult, since the signature has not been obtained under the IT Act. This not just vitiates the authentication process present for smart contracts within the blockchain technology, but also disallows such contracts to be submitted as evidence in front of the court. Many national systems, including citizen service portals, identification mechanisms, real-time payment systems, property and land registries, insurance and welfare schemes, are major infrastructural platforms for a country. While the coding capability of smart contracts has progressed from just being able to execute currency-like transactions to fully programmable executions, it is still not able to code for all possible contract scenarios. The innovative potential of blockchain, essentially to drive efficiency and transparency, can only be realized if smart contract systems can communicate reliably with non-blockchain based systems and auto-execute transactions. Some of the major Indian government undertakings utilizing blockchain-based systems are namely the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, the Telecommunication Technology Authority of India, the Press Information Bureau of India, the Department of Banking Regulation and Banking Policy Division, and the Coffee Board of India, etc. Smart contracts may thus be particularly effective for sectors that use highly standardized contractual terms without material deviations. By way of example, in the mass transit and business sectors, the benefits of scale may exceed the cost of establishing and maintaining the software infrastructure. Smart contracts may also benefit society as a whole by reducing public or private sector costs or the number of court proceedings. In addition, smart contracts may give rise to other benefits such as making it easier to enter into contracts without requiring an intermediary, or streamlining verification of identity or execution and recording of transactions, etc. Smart contracts may also promote the use of electronic signatures, increase transparency, and reduce conflicts by the automated enforcement of rights. Having said the above, there is no doubt that the adoption of smart contracts can be revolutionary and can directly lead in the reductions of overhead costs in the billions while at the same time making the entire process more secure and transparent. For example, a Capgemini study reports that through the adoption of smart contracts, retail banking and insurance companies alone can save close to 3 to 11 billion US dollars in reduced overhead costs, which could in turn result in $980 savings for each individual customer. However, regulatory concerns exist, especially in India where there are no regulations with respect to the finer details relating to smart contracts. A wide-scale adoption of the technology will require the government to make amendments to the Indian Evidence Act 1872 and the IT Act if specific regulations are not made. Also, with respect to the capability to code certain kinds of clauses, industries must try and affix a specific interpretation on clauses which could be considered ambiguous. Thus, to conclude, it would be too early to celebrate the introduction of smart contracts into our markets, especially when they operate in such a regulatory gray area.